you decided to start this business, you lock in on this like sales commission idea. And then obviously you had two co-founders, right? You had Conway, you had Hubert, both of whom you met at Berkeley. And I know Conway, I don't know Hubert, but how did the three of you decide to become co-founders? And like, how did you know you were the right fit to build something together? Like, did you like bring the sales commission idea to them and be like, hey, this is a problem that's worth solving? And then they were like, oh yeah, I want to do this too. Or like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, a skill set that maybe, we'll probably talk about is like, you always have to just make sure your doors are open just to meeting people, connections and all that. So, I came back. It's funny because I remember this very well. The beauty of like back then was, I knew I wanted to go pursue a startup, and there's a whole separate conversation around like getting mentally prepared for that. So I knew I was going to lock myself for 2 years. I don't care what it's going to be like. I had a very simple goal: startup, one customer that I can delight. That's it. I'm not trying to think big. I'm not trying to think like Uber or whatever it is. I just want to I just want to create something where we're delighting one customer. And then it feels like that itch that I've always had, like we scratched, let's just start there.
Yeah.
And so I came back. And so, you're like in a coffee shop exploring ideas, but commissions is number one. So I reached out to folks in my network, and this is where I'm starting to exercise what I got trained in the investing world. Okay. You got a thesis. Go like, if there's one thing investing does for you is like, go create your own like results. So go research this. And so just like in investing, like I went to go find people and just talk to people. And again, I think that's an underrepresented skill set. You're just getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so I reached out to unknown people, but I also reached out to people in my network. So Conway and I knew each other because we're really good friends. We both, for context for everyone, Conway, in an earlier part of his career, co-founded a company with one of my really, really close friends, Victor, called 5 Stars. Yeah. And so I knew Conway was in this finance role. I knew he was dealing with commissions. So I talked to him like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain, commissions internally. Well, not only was it a hair on fire pain, so I was like, oh gosh, this is awesome. But he started asking like, what do you want to do? And so we've known each other from hanging out in college and post-college. But, that question really started a series of conversations where Conway was feeling like he wants to get back into the startup world. Like he loves solving problems. And so he started asking me a lot of questions, like a lot of philosophical ones, like, what do you believe? Why do you want to do a startup? What does this look like for you in 5 years? And we actually had a lot of alignment on the direction and perspectives and all that stuff. And so I remember Conway asked like, hey man, I know that startups is a lonely space. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, it also helps having like a mutual level of accountability. Would you want to just like ideate on this and just this and many other ideas? And I'm like, yeah, like I want to maximize like that initial goal. Like I think it's a better together story. Absolutely. Let's do this, let's just see where it goes. And so it was just that, like, it wasn't hey, let's be co-founders together. It was, hey, let's just start working together and let's just see where it goes. One thing led to another, and we started validating this idea and many other ideas until we're like, okay, this one, there's a whole separate story about evaluating startup ideas, but the TLDR would be hair on fire pain is the best signal you can have. There was one ideas where they're like, yeah, it'd be nice to try out. And then we're like, well, what do you think about commissions? Please, like, do you have anything? Like, I need, like, I'm really dealing with this right now. Can I give you my company financials, all of our data on our employee base and how much they make? And look, when you're in investing banking or when you're in growth equity, you kind of learn like data is really sensitive and NDAs, you deal with contracts all the time. And you're like, something feels really weird about these hot companies giving you their employee information or their company financials without an NDA because they're just like, I need help. And that's when it's like, okay, that's a signal. Like the fact that like people are willing to give you this information so quickly. That's how Conway and I started working together. And then Hubert came in when we're like, look, Conway and I, we're business guys. And for context, he was in consulting for a couple of years before doing a startup, but he's more of a business background. And he has some coding chops, but not like, not to this level of a true like technical co-founder. And so we reached into our network and through friends of friends, we got connected to Hubert, also a Berkeley guy. And look, he was having a great successful career at this ad tech company, but he was feeling this itch to go back to the startup. There was things that he wasn't super happy with Fungal. And someone put it best, when you're looking for co-founders, it's really hard. And I agree with that. And it almost feels like a stars need to align to find just the team to start out with. And in retro, if I had to give some people for advice, Yeah, that's a very true statement. I now appreciate like how valuable it is to work with great teams who egos checked at the door. Just like, let's be solution minded. Let's commit. Let's work hard. We're going to quit our jobs for this. That's how we got with Hubert. And then, we applied to Y Combinator, which is this incubator really well known in the Bay Area, got
Yeah.
in, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So, because on that note, because you guys have three co-founders and Huber is the technical one. Usually, guys like you and Conway, even myself, because I've thought about like when you think about starting a business, like even like me starting Wall Street Mastermind, it's like more of a services business. Going to school in Silicon Valley and then living in Silicon Valley for like more than a decade after. Like, of course, you also think about starting a tech business. And for me, it's always been like, well, I have no technical chops. Like, I don't code, and you need to find out a technical co-founder. And so usually I feel like for guys like God, if even if you wanted a co-founder, usually the first guy you would go find is like a technical co-founder. But I just found it interesting that the first guy you want to find is like arguably someone who has like more of a redundant skill set as yourself, right? So like, how did you think about that? Because also like obviously it worked out for you guys. Like you guys are still running the business together today, and I'm sure you guys have like a great partnership. But you also hear a lot of horror stories about when co-founders don't work out, right? Because like in some ways it's easier if you just do everything yourself and you can make all the decisions and you don't have to get consensus. And like, I'm sure you guys have disagreements sometimes on like the direction to go in or whatever. So like, and as co-CEOs, I assume you guys, I don't know how you guys do like allocate the work and decision making or whatever. I'd be curious to learn about that too. But how did you ever like, were you worried about that? I guess like when you were first like, yeah.
It's a great question. And for me, it's an easy one. And I think for Conway, I think it'd be similar, which is, am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Startups are fucking hard. Like taking a step back, it doesn't take like more than two brain cells to realize like the odds are stacked against you.
Yeah.
It's like 1 in 100 just to get to a seed round, maybe even like worse odds than that. Like someone space 1 in 100 to get to seed round, 1 in 100 to get to Series A, 1 in 100 of that to get to Series B, 1 in 100 of that to get to Series C. So like the fact I've always acknowledged, I never had this overly ambitious, like, oh, I want this to be like Uber or whatever. No. I had a very simple ambition, and I'm going to need all the fucking help to get there. I'm not going to overthink this. If there are people who are full force multipliers, we're solution minded, we're a team. We've all been in group projects where like a really great group project is when we're all working together, not like doing it solo. And some of it is accountability. Some of it is like you're bringing unique aspects to the table. And so it was never without a doubt that it's going to like the more the merrier concept. And I remember people asking me this too. They're like, oh, why don't would you want to just do this with, you and a co-founder or like a technical co-founder? I'm not going to overthink it. Like this stuff is so hard. And in fact, I would say those people who did ask me that, where they were trying to be a founder, those businesses did not last long. And the fact that we're here, we're about just shy of 300 employees. Look, I mean, we have a long journey still ahead of us, but feel like I would not be here without Conway. I would not be here without Hubert.
Yeah.
Hopefully they say the same about me. But
like a group project that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I know, right? I know that's the hidden question behind all of this. A really good question
I'll
to
send them the
validate.
script and ask them.
Yeah, exactly. But I look at that as like, look, what matters is like what happens in the end. And I'd say our story's still being told, but like all those people who had those other perspectives, they're not around anymore, right? And so, look, I don't know if what my way, the way I approached it and how Conway and I and Hubert approached it is like the best way. Absolutely not. But, you got to go think about your skill sets where, how do you get this to be successful? And I'm of the mindset, just who I am, like we're a team gets stuff done versus, man, I applaud solo founders. Solo founders are like the equivalent of like having 4 kids, being like a single mother. Like there are people who can do that, but like, every time I see them, I give them a handshake. I don't know how you did it. Like against all odds, I could never do that.
Yeah. I think one thing you said that really stood out is like you use the word force multiplier, right? Which, to your point, and now that I run my own business as well, building a business, the most important thing is the talent. Is like you just need good people, and if you find good people, someone told me this one is like if you find someone good, just get them on the bus first and figure out which seat to put them in later.
Yeah.
Rather,
Yeah.
even if you don't have the perfect role for them, get them to like join the cause, right? And,
A
I
100%. Yeah.
and I know Conway personally, like that guy is like super smart, right? And so like when you say force multiply, I was like, oh yeah, that is what he is. And so I think the fact that and the other saying that comes to mind is like, what's that saying? People say like, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together or like go in a group or
Yes.
whatever. And so like
Totally. I mean,
you could keep the entire pie to yourself and get 100%. Like, do you want 100% of a grape or do you want like 50% of a watermelon, right? Like,
yeah.
uh,
Uh,
that's
oh,
basically
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for everyone in the call, it's like, dude, building a startup is like climbing Everest, except like harder than that, like the Everest of Everestes. And so it's like, do you want to go do this by yourself? Do you want to go with one other person? And I'm like, dude, like, don't overthink it. Do it with what maximizes success. And
Yeah.
so like, I remember like, going back to this quote, like the stars align moment, because when you find a great talent team to put this all together, I mean, there's a reason why we became a market leader. I mean, not to toot our own horn, but like today, people are familiar with Forrester. Forrester's a research publication. We are one of the two leaders in the category. Like it took an insane amount of work to get there, but it's a team that got us there.
Yeah.
And I can't state that enough. Like startups really, really hard. And look, I look back and all the people who had approached it differently, solo founder, whatever, like you just made the probability of finding success dramatically hard. Now, again, some of them could do it. I've seen a solo founder like do it, but you're against even harder odds. And look, hats off to you. Like, but that's not the game I want to play.
Yeah, for sure. How do you, as a non-technical person, like let's say like when you guys met Huber, I'm sure Huber wasn't the only technical person you guys talked to, and it wasn't just like, oh, you're the first guy to talk to, let's hire you. How do you vet like if someone is worthy of being your technical founder when you have no technical skills? Like, how do you know?
It's a great question. Well, this is where back channels come in really handy. The first starting point is there a culture fit? Do you get along well? You go through the idea, you talk about like the nuances with it. You get a feel like how is it going to be like working with this person? And so, uh, to get a sense, like we spent quite a bit of time with Hubert. You're right. Like we didn't run him through a coding exercise. We instead actually do something probably, not uncommon, which is first we back channeled and people were like, dude, he's exceptionally smart. He's really, really good at his craft. And you're like, okay, that's the starting point. Like, okay, we're talking to the right person. Then the culture fit. I remember like we met at the Starbucks on King Street in San Francisco, like right next to the Caltrain. We have this picture of it that we show people for people joining the company. Like, where did we begin for all of us? But you talked about the idea and you just get along well. And one thing for people who don't know Hubert, look, I mean, not to disparage like technical folks out there, but sometimes it's really hard to talk to them. Sometimes it's just like, okay, like, I don't know if I can grab a beer with this person. Hubert's really gifted for being very, very easy to get along with. He's very empathetic. He very high IQ, but also very high EQ. And so already from a first impression, we're like, wow, this guy's not only just good, but like, he's really easy to work with. What are we missing here? And
What's
so
the
after a few, what's the catch? You're like, this is kind of weird. And look, to your point, like we've met some other people and we're like, okay, that person's going to be interesting to work with. Or one who we heard was like really, really, really good. Man, the culture fit. Like
Yeah.
you just know, like this is just going to be so hard. Like there's just so many more things you have to solve around. And so, when we did spend like forever, like several months trying to evaluate. I mean, kind of in a technical way we did, but not like in the beginning part to know that, okay, we want to start working together and we want to move fast. And so we threw out the hero, why don't we just try this out? Trial, right? So why don't we start working together over, I don't know, like 4 weeks, 2 months, 4 to 8 weeks and see what it's like. Do we like each other? Do we get good feedback? And so it was like November when we started working together and he was like, I already got your concept and I'm already working on Conway had a V1 prototype, which is based off of like Bootstrap and like just slapped together. Huber was working on V2, but he was already like, you give him an abstract and he's already like in the right direction.
Wow.
You're iterating and you're locking arms in a room together. So think of it like a group project. It doesn't take long to know, is this group project going to be successful? Or is it like, I hate coming to work with these people or work with one of them? And so really quickly, it was just like, this is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
this is really, really awesome. And, the progress, you're seeing what's coming back, the production, and you're like, he's producing, he's iterating fast. And this is the hard part. This is like, it gets into the whole conversation. How do you find the right technical founders who are more hackers
Yeah.
versus seeking perfection? And they're going to take 2 years to build a product, which is death. Like, I would
Right.
never encourage that. And Hubert was just like, he was hacking together stuff very quickly. And through Y Combinator, like, we had to eventually go for V3 of our product, which getting to a V2, I should say. V3 came later, but he hacked together really, what we needed to prove out the prototype to get customers paying us.
Yeah.
And I look at that as like, man, the perfect co-founder. Easily you want the kind of person you want to start with, because he's great to get along with. You can spend late nights. You can talk through things. He adds to the conversation. Not only that, then he produces what, we're all like working together on and iterating and building, not building together, building on top of what, the existing conversation versus no, Hubert, that's not right. Oh my God, let's take 10 steps backwards because you went a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that thing you said about like, meeting multiple candidates and like someone who was really good, at least like talent wise, but culturally didn't feel like it fit. I feel like it's just like sports, like, I mean, we're from the Bay Area, like you look at a team like the Warriors, like, yes, you need talent, but also like in the locker room, what's the culture like? And do the players like each other? And do they get along? Because chemistry matters. Like, you want to win a championship or you want to win multiple championships. Like, there's so many teams out there that have like big threes and they are all super talented and it just like freaking falls apart because the pieces don't fit, right? And so I think
Interests, like there's some folks that like like in your, I think you're really close friends with them. Like in the initial conversation they were starting out, they're like, dude, I'm happy did the startup thing. I don't want to go back. I want a nice career at Facebook. I'm happy. I'm good. I don't want to do it again. And so there's also just like, look, you're going to have to kind of give it your all and, go on a whim and quit your job and all that stuff. It's a big ask. And a lot of people are also like self-selecting out. They're like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I want the comfortable life. I want the risk-free option.
Yeah. It has to be the right person at the right time in their life at the right place. Yeah. So
Stars align. Yeah. Stars align.
You talked about YC. Obviously, I want to touch on that a little bit. Y Combinator, very famous for its network, demo day, stuff like that. Like a lot of startups, like if you want to join some sort of, I guess, what do they call it? Accelerators, incubators? I don't even know, right? YC is kind of like, YC is like the one to join, right?